Hey, this is Will, and in this lesson, I will be showing you how to set up a Kubernetes cluster. There are a lot of different ways to install Kubernetes, and I'll provide a link in the video description to their documentation where you can explore some of the different options for installing Kubernetes in different environments. In this course, we will be using kubeadm. kubeadm will help us get a functional Kubernetes setup up and running very quickly and very easily. And I've provided a link also directly to the kubeadm setup instructions, so you can go there if you want any additional information on how to install and set it up. So in order to set up a Kubernetes cluster, we're actually going to need two servers. There are ways to do it with just one, but in order to emulate something that looks a little bit more like the real world, we are going to use two servers. One will be the master and one will be the node. In a normal setup, the master is the server that kind of controls everything. It's the server that you really interact with when you're doing things in Kubernetes, and the nodes run your actual application. So in the demos for this course, we'll set up a master and one node. The cloud servers here at Linux Academy actually have a install image that comes with the necessary packages already installed, and it's configured for use with Kubernetes. Those four packages are docker.io, kubelet, kubeadm, and kubectl. So if you were setting this up on your own environment, you would need to install those four packages. Once we've installed those four packages on both the master and the node, we will configure the master using kubeadm init. And we'll set up a special config file, and I'll show you how to do that in order to designate the node that is going to be the master with kubeadm init. Then we will configure kubectl, and the way that we'll do that is we'll actually use a set of commands that will be generated by the kubeadm init command. So we'll just copy and paste those commands, and those commands will allow us to interact with the Kubernetes cluster with our normal user account without having to use sudo, for example. Then we need to set up a network for the Kubernetes cluster. There's multiple options for networks, but we are going to be using one called Flannel simply because it's very easy to set up. And we can do that by applying a Kubernetes config file with kubectl apply. And finally, we'll be able to join our node to the cluster. I don't actually need this information, so I'm just going to click Don't Show Again. And I need to set up two servers, so this first one will be my master. This second one will be the node. So I will click on the second one, and I will select Cloud Native Kubernetes for that one as well, and Create Server. And I'm going to go ahead and fast forward to when these servers are done starting up. So now that my cloud servers are done starting up, I'm going to go ahead and tag this first one as the kube master. This doesn't actually change anything. It just provides some information. So if I come back to this page later, I can see that this one is the master and I know which is which. So I'm going to copy the public IP of the kube master. And now I'm going to log into that cloud server. And the user account that I want to use is just user. So user at that IP address. And the password initially is always going to be 123456. And then I need to re-enter that password so that I can change the password. And now I will specify a real password for this server. So once I specify the real password, it's going to disconnect me, and I need to SSH again. And this time I can log in using the new password that I specified. So now I'm logged into the server. And what I need to do is I need to create a configuration file for kubeadm, which I will use to initialize this server as the Kubernetes master. And I'm just going to go ahead and create this file right here in my home directory. And I'll just call it kube-config.yaml. Doesn't really matter what it's named, but it is going to be a YAML file. And I'm just going to go ahead and paste this content in here. And I will include the contents of this YAML file in the description to this video so you can get it from there. Couple important things to notice. I am specifying the networking pod subnet. This is the subnet CIDR that is going to be used for networking. And this is a value that is required by Flannel, which is the networking solution that we will be installing once we have initialized the master node. The second argument here expands the port range that can be used for service nodes. And normally we wouldn't do this in a production environment, but for the purposes of this demo, if we want to expose lower ports for testing, we will need to set this setting. You'll notice I'm bringing that lower range all the way down to 8,000. Normally it's up in the 30,000s, and those ports are not open on the cloud servers, so we won't be able to access them. So for testing purposes, we want to bring that port range down a little bit. And that's what this second setting here is for. So I'm just going to go ahead and save that file. And now I'm ready to do my sudo kube adm init --config and kube-config, which is the file that I just created. And you do need to run this as a sudo command.